Okay. Hello, everybody. It's I'm so excited that we have audience. It's the afternoon of the second day and after lunch. So I salute everybody that's here and I thank you all for attending this session. I'm also thrilled to be among this very special panelists. And although we have their biographies on the site, I would just give the first minute for everybody just to give a small brief from the wide experience that's more relevant to the empowering women in our session. Lara, if you would like to start.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. This is my first time in Jordan. It's absolutely beautiful, and I've already enjoyed some of your hospitality. I'm excited about this panel and overall this topic. As a woman who's crossed industries a couple of times and taken on more and more responsible roles, I just feel very passionate about the topic of mentoring women and ensuring diverse boards and organizations. I think there's proof and evidence now that organizations perform better and deliver better when we have diversity at the table.
Thank you, Lara. And actually, the topic today is a very important topic, and all governments and multinationals are very focused on women empowerment. And I believe a big part of it is having both genders aligned on this mission. And we have Motaz representing the other gender. Thank you for being part of this session.
I feel lucky actually today. Lara, welcome to Jordan first. My name is Motaz Rababa'h. I am a co-founder at a company, a Jordanian company called NeoGenesis Technical Solutions. And it's a very interesting topic today because we will share also our thoughts and our some proven track record at NeoGenesis that we have done to empower women and make sure that she is integrated with the tech industry as well.
Thank you, Motaz. Nour, please go ahead as well.
It's working? Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. And it's always very refreshing to participate in such panels. I work with the World Bank. I'm based in Jordan, working to support the government, the private sector, and civil society in advancing women's economic participation. It's a vibrant scene in Jordan, as you may know. I see a lot of familiar faces that we've worked with over the last years. Gender diversity management has been personally a passion for me. I started my career working in the IT industry, so it's really fulfilling to see the advancements that we are making in Jordan and the region. I also cover other countries in the region. And I'm happy to share some of the insights in this panel today.
Thank you, Nour. Fareeda, first of all, welcome from Palestine. We always enjoy having colleagues from Palestine, and thank you for being here. I'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for having me among this very distinguished group. So my name is Fareeda Diab, and I'm an electrical engineer with a minor computer engineering. I've spent 17 years of my life in the telecommunication industry, particularly in cellular communications. And then the last 8 years of my life, I've joined the economic development world, helping companies in the economic development, creating opportunities for them, as well as creating opportunities for larger employment in the ICT sector, including men and women. And also I sit on the board of Al-Quds Bank, one of the prominent and fast-growing banks in Palestine. So thank you again for having me. And you know, when I first was invited to participate in this session, I thought a lot of how my contribution could be helpful as well as interesting. So I decided today to be factual and to be transparent also, so that I hope I can add value.
I'm sure all of your inputs will be great and very helpful to everyone doing this. Lara, I'll actually start. Lara, as an influential leader with GSMA, you are uniquely positioned to address how technology can empower women globally and in the MENA region specifically. The role of digital transformation in economic empowerment, of course, is very crucial, and especially for underserved population, and it's a key. So my question to you, could you share how the GSMA's global initiatives have helped to break down barriers for women in MENA, specifically in accessing mobile technology and digital inclusion?
Yes, thank you so much for that. I get to represent the GSMA, which happens to represent an industry, the mobile industry, and everyone here will appreciate that mobile has become a great enabler. We were talking about digitization being accelerated post-COVID and how quickly the world is moving, and now with emerging technologies like AI, it's incredibly important to get this right. As an industry, we were the first to sign up to the SDGs, and we all recognize that gender equality is an important element and goal. And so the organization kind of takes a very wide purview to how can we influence governments and regulators, how can we produce research and reports that help to bring light and facts, to Fareeda's point, to the discussion, and then how can we address the underlying issues, the things that are keeping women from being included in this digital economy ultimately. And so those range from developing a mobile gender gap report once a year that comes out with important data by country so we can see where we have the biggest gaps.
Okay.
It includes working with organizations like the ITU and the UN to bring and deliver digital skills training to women and youth. We've reached 70 million women and youth around the world so far. And we think it's really important to do a couple of things. There's an inclusion issue where the root causes include literacy, relevant content, online safety, affordable handsets. We have to address those things. And then there's the element of how do we encourage women into STEM careers so that they begin to influence really the course of direction in the technology world. So we try to have activities that address both of those, and I think they're meaningful. And we have the backing of a board and mobile operators around the world. So I think we have a responsibility that we're living up to.
And you feel the difference along the past years of your input and how the reactions of the different communities.
Absolutely.
You've seen it.
You know, there's a big digital divide in a country like Pakistan, for example.
Yeah.
And I was there in July. I went to a smart village where we are using smart televisions, very simple solution really, but a remote village. The only way to get STEM education to girls is to do it through a smart television so that the teacher is somewhere else in the country but can reach and teach and really begin to mold those minds, right? And so simple, straightforward solution, but seeing it come to life is very, very powerful, and all enabled by technology and connectivity.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll actually jump to Fareeda because we were touching base on the issues. Fareeda, with your extensive experience in business development and ICT, particularly in challenging environments, and your insights are incredibly valuable, as we mentioned. So operating within challenging contexts often brings unique lessons and perspectives that everybody can actually utilize and put forward to face their challenges. So my questions to you is, given your experience with projects like TechStart in Palestine, which is relevant to any tech startups, how have political and economical challenges shaped your strategies for empowering women, specifically in tech?
Thank you. So I think it's needless to say that we in Palestine face immense challenges. It goes beyond any common challenges with any other country within the MENA region. The occupation is the big hurdle, and it imposes a lot of barriers to even any effort to economic development, not only in women employment. So we had to think of all of that, including things that, for example, when other countries are facing cultural and inherited beliefs regarding women moving from one place to another, we have that, but on top of it, we have the roadblocks, the checkpoints, the lack of safety commuting from one place to another. So that's a big added layer to the complexity in the situation. So we think of initiatives, we think of ways to help both companies get to the talent and women also access these opportunities. So we worked with several companies. We encouraged them to adopt the working from home and remote work, which has thrived during the COVID time, luckily, and it's become a trend. And until today, companies are using this work arrangement. So we encouraged companies to continue doing that, especially for women. Also, we encouraged companies to have offices and branches in other parts of West Bank. Although Palestine is relatively small, however, this was a solution that was welcomed by the companies. So you see multiple offices for a single company in different places, both in West Bank and Gaza, and it was very well received by the companies. We also worked on the working environment, making more women-friendly, and that's, of course, something that we learn as we move forward. It's something that we carefully address with the companies and their capabilities, as well as with women and their needs. So it can start with flexible working hours, flexible arrangements during the week, and goes beyond that to equal pay and equal career advancement within the companies. And it might reach as far as helping companies to provide childcare also, so that we don't ignore all the roles that comes with a woman. You have to take the woman as a package. She's a mother, she's a wife, and she's also an engineer or a software developer. So we also work on that. And then finally, I think the overall inclusion of women in the ICT labor force, we provide incentives for companies that employ higher percentages of women, as well as companies that have leadership positions that are occupied by women and, of course, women founders. So the more incentives is provided to these kind of categories of companies. And by doing that, we're not enforcing anything. We're just rewarding those companies who have already gone this path.
Absolutely. Actually, not only for political reasons, even for cultural, we see that bridging a very big gap for women in underserved areas where they're very talented, but now they can engage because the lack of commuting or whatever. So maybe from another angle also, that part of people starting to get acquainted with online work maybe helped a lot as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Motaz, we ladies first still stand, so we're going to go for Nour first. Okay. We want equality, but we want ladies first to stay.
That's diversity.
Nour, as a gender specialist at the World Bank, your work is central to creating policies and programs that supports women economic participations in Jordan. So public-private partnerships often amplify the impact of initiatives, and it supports women's economic empowerment in a big impact. So my questions to you is, how do collaborations with organizations like maybe Intaj or others in the private domain help drive greater inclusion, and what best practices would you recommend for similar partnerships so we can learn from your experience in the different models from the World Bank, and we can adopt it whether in Intaj or other parts of organization can help empower women?
Thank you. So absolutely, government will and endorsement of programs is crucial to implementing policies and strategies. There is a strategy in Jordan for doubling female labor force participation, for example. Other countries in the region also suffer from low female labor force participation. In Jordan, for example, it stands at 15%, and in Lebanon it's 22%. In Iraq, it's even lower than Jordan. So it's very important to leverage the existence of such organizations like Intaj or other civil society organizations, or even business associations that can help in facilitating reach to the private sector. The private sector, in the end, is the job creator. This is a fact, and it's at the same time a challenge, because in countries that have always embraced women working in the government, it's always a challenge to have women more integrated into the labor force and into the private sector. So Intaj, partnering with Intaj through the World Bank and IFC, the International Finance Corporation, under the Mashriq Gender Facility in the last years has enabled us to work directly with a network of ICT firms in Jordan through peer learning platforms where companies that participated in the PLP helped in interchange of knowledge horizontally and vertically. So companies of different sizes, different focus areas in the ICT sector were exchanging best practices and learning from other countries as well on what to do when it comes to gender diversity management. Of course, having a platform and an outreach through the database of Intaj helped us in drawing this commitment year after year, and now we are actually in this phase of peer learning platform focusing on childcare solutions in the private sector. Now, a lot of these things are initiated by the firms themselves, but sometimes the firms really need, or the companies really need to learn more on how to implement in practice. Another thing I want to say is that through our coordination also with the Jordanian Machinery for Women Empowerment, the Jordanian National Commission for Women, we were able to escalate this topic of gender diversity management to cover other sectors as well. It's not just the ICT sector. Sure. And today we are in a country that, like other countries in the region, like Egypt, for example, like in the UAE, we are adopting the Gender Equality Seal. And the World Bank and the IFC remain committed to supporting that through the recent operation on enhancing women's economic empowerment, where the government will sign off on a gender equality seal in Jordan and promote it for the private sector, where companies like the ICT firms that were involved in the PLP will apply to the gender seal, and this allows them to state and showcase their commitment to gender diversity and equality.
And you actually give incentives for organizations that are within this, or you're just giving awareness, or you're touching base on incentives as well?
So as part of developing the gender seal, the government is looking into offering incentives. This is a work in progress, but I just wanted to mention that this is something that the government has committed to, and it is the result of an accumulation of efforts, not only, of course, by the World Bank, but it was very important that we gain government commitment towards that through World Bank projects and operations, so that it covers a wider number of firms, and as I mentioned, with different sizes, and not just the large, very well-established and well-known companies that have already advanced in this topic.
Thank you. Motaz, you're a leader in digital transformation. You bring a unique perspective in fostering innovation and inclusion in tech. Education STEM, of course, is the foundation for increasing diversity in tech. So my question to you is, in your view, how can STEM education be leveraged to create more pathways for women in MENA's tech sector, and what role should tech companies play in this effort?
Thank you. Actually, as you know, Maha, maybe STEM education is an interdisciplinary educational approach where it has a process of coaching and learning for students, focusing on mainly 4 disciplines: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And unlike traditional education, which separate these pathways, learning pathways from each other, STEM education integrates them together, and it combines them as well, so it can help students solve real-world problems and deal with real-world applications. And one of the main features for STEM education actually is to foster equity, which gives opportunities for underrepresented groups to have access for tech industry as well. So I think it's a very powerful tool to give more pathways for women to be integrated in the tech field, because it will give them the foundational skills and the confidence to participate in the tech field journey as well. So I think there are as well many ways that can help with the STEM education to integrate women. Maybe an early curriculum design, for example, and an early exposure for female students at early stage in the school. It will give them more exposure on hands-on learning and real-world applications. Another way, I think, is a mentorship programs. So for these young female students to meet successful women as you, ladies in this panel, they will feel more highly motivated to get in touch in this field as well. And I think for some areas as well, giving them scholarships, it will overcome the financial barriers that they have to access these fields. For tech firms as well, I think they need to build a strong and robust ecosystem with schools and universities to give them internships, scholarships, workshops as well. Also sponsoring them to do, like, let's say, robotics workshops, coding workshops as well, specifically for women. This will help them getting upskilled with emerging technologies as well. And I think another way is to integrate it with their CSR initiatives as well for these tech companies, because in this way they can sponsor some female students from the schools and from the universities. So in a nutshell, STEM education can help women a lot to get the confidence to be integrated in the tech field.
Absolutely, and the early stages is very important for everything, but I also would like to stress that that's a big part, but another part is giving that kind of education to males as well, to accept that the females will also have a role and be part of the community. So the early education should tackle not only the ladies as well as the gentlemen in their young ages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even after schools programs, this is something really important for
And mentoring,
both
yeah, as you said.
genders as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. Fareeda, I will jump back to you and says gender inclusion remains a cornerstone of many impactful initiatives. So my question to you is, in your previous programs, you worked on, and you've implemented policies ensuring a minimum of 30% participation rate for women in your projects, which is, in today's rates, is a good rate, it's a very good rate actually. Could you share the impact of this initiative on the project's outcomes and the broader ICT sector in Palestine? So how did you actually reach that level, and what was the impact of that level on the projects and the outcomes?
First, let me clarify here that the 30% was a requirement from the programs, but not specifically from the companies. We work with companies, we encourage companies, we advocate, but we never impose any percentages. After all, this is an employment, and it's an open employment. Companies also here, and in Palestine specifically, ICT sector is very competitive. So they're looking for growth, they're looking for developing their businesses, and then they're looking for the good and qualified talent. So we do everything to help them pursue that, including encouraging them to select qualified women and have a good representation of women in their workforce. So I think in addition to the percentages that we've achieved for the project, the 30% minimum, we have heard many feedback from companies on the shift and the transformation of how they now look at women employment in ICT. So some of the feedback we heard is that having more female employees in the ICT, specifically in software development, have brought a sense of challenge and creativity to the teams, which also fueled the innovation. It's something that we were very glad to hear. So the collaboration between men and women within this field have created this higher performing teams, and it affected, of course, the product quality that has been, or the companies has been working on. Another feedback from companies also is that they believe that female employees, female engineers, has lowered their turnover and churn rate. So women tend to stay more in a job than a man. So this was also another advantage. And since it's a very competitive market and we're limited by the pool of talent that exists within the boundaries of Palestine, this was also something very important for the companies. I think all of that contributed to the organic growth of more female getting into the ICT sector. So the language of, for example, job advertisement has changed to encourage more female. So female are encouraged to apply to these jobs, and companies are now looking into talents, and this is why they're opening branches closer to the concentration of women in the north, for example, or in the south, or in Gaza, other parts of the peripheral Gaza, in order to access the women talent pool. And beyond that, I think the 30% was modest, let me say, at this time, because the projects afterwards, and among them TechStart, which is, by the way, funded by the World Bank, and they stress a big portion of it on women employment, the percentage was raised to reach almost like 45% of women participation. But again, without any enforcement on the companies, but rather working with them, understanding the issues and trying to solve those issues.
Thank you. Lara, going back to you, collaborations between private companies and governments are often key to impactful social change. So how does GSMA work to create a supportive ecosystem for women's participation in tech specifically?
First of all, we start with ourselves. You can't change things externally if you're not kind of living your values, right? So we report on DE&I statistics, and about a little over 50% of our own workforce as the GSMA are women, and at senior leadership levels, we've almost reached a 50-50 split.
Perfect.
So we're very, very proud of that. Then we recognize as an organization that we represent 96% of the world's networks, 70% of the world population uses a mobile device. So how can we influence through that? We set important goals with our board around how will we improve the situation from a mobile industry perspective. The reality is that 26% of leaders in mobile are women, and that statistic has stalled in the last several years. So it's not getting better in spite of all of our efforts.
Okay.
So earlier this year, we gathered a group of external organizations who are all working on this, because the recognition is there's no shortage of work, but there is definitely a deficit of momentum. So how can we work together with some of those external organizations? And some important outputs came out of that discussion. One is creating a measure for the industry. So we're going to invest in a way to measure how we're performing today, create a baseline, and then measure and set goals for ourselves against that. Some of the other things that we're going to do is improve using our own platforms as the GSMA. Many of you in this room will have been to MWC. It's probably the biggest thing that we're known for.
Sure.
And I have the responsibility of creating the content for MWC. Last year, 45% of our keynote speakers were women. And to qualify to get on that stage, you have to be a CEO. And that required a good deal of creativity, negotiation, convincing women to come and speak, but we absolutely have to create platforms where we are, again, reflecting our values, and then taking an environment like MWC, which has for years been very much a male domain, and making it somewhere that women want to come and feel like they can join in. As Fareeda said earlier, we've got to view women as kind of all the component parts that they bring to the table, and we can't improve statistics until we improve environments and cultures. So those are just some of the ways that we're working to create a supportive environment and hope to attract more and more women to our industry and the broader ecosystem.
Well, as you said, you have a big database and a big chunk of reach, so you can impact.
We must use it.
We must use it.
Yeah.
Essential.
Yeah.
Motaz, creating inclusive environments is key to retaining a diverse talent in tech. What practices have you implemented at NeoGenesis to foster an inclusive culture, and what advice would you give other tech firms aiming to attract and retain women in these roles?
Actually, having an inclusive culture that fosters diversity, it's something intentional, cannot be automatic, actually. You need to take some practices and policies and to adapt it from the beginning and early stages of your organization to foster this culture. And we at NeoGenesis, from the beginning, 8 years back, we adopted some practices and policies to enforce the culture of diversity and inclusivity. For instance, what we have done already, that when we look at our middle management at the company, we could see that 40% of our middle management are females. So we did like a focused, diversity-focused hiring, okay? And we set like a measurable diversity goals for the recruitment and leadership roles. That resulted us to have 40% of our middle management is a female, and 25% almost of our employees are female as well. What we are planning also to increase this percentage from 25% to 40% by end of this year. Also, we have developed a supporting working environment for women at our organization that give remote work options and part-time roles, so it can align with different life stages as well. And we as well developed some training and enablement programs for women in the organization in order for her to handle managerial and leadership roles as well. But maybe the most important part is to be proactive and doing some continuous improvement with time. For instance, we have done an intervention with the cooperation of GIZ and Intaj She-Tex unit. The intervention aims to assess and evaluate our internal policies and how it's aligned with inclusivity and diversity, and what practices should we continually improve in order to make our culture towards gender diversity management journey. And this participation was voluntary actually, but it shows how NeoGenesis is committed to be as a pioneer in the gender diversity management journey as well. For other tech firms, actually, I think they have to adopt policies and practices, and they have to be intentional about inclusivity, because again, it's something not automatic. It requires the buy-in from the leadership as well. They need also to build a robust ecosystem with schools and universities for internships and sponsoring programs as well. And maybe some recognition and good celebration for women achievement in the organization as well. It will fuel their interest in this tech industry as well.
Thank you. This is what I meant. It's partnership in both genders. What you're saying, we wish everybody would do the same, because that's what would make us reach the end goal, to tell you the truth. Nour, as we look to the future, it's essential to focus on sustainability and growth. What future steps do you believe are critical to furthering women's economic empowerment in MENA's tech ecosystem?
So yes, it's very important from our standpoint in the World Bank as we work to end poverty and promote shared prosperity in a livable planet. That's our basically twin goal. To look towards the future and start by making sure that we understand the status quo. So we do a lot of research and reporting on the status of digital in the countries that we work with. And for example, in the MENA or the Mashriq region, we did an analysis when it comes to women on how does tech serve women when it comes to economic participation. And one of our main findings is that technology and digital is an opportunity for women, as we all know, but with the gender gaps that are there, we found gender gaps, for example, when it comes to access to mobile and internet services and packages, related, of course, to both social norms but also affordability concerns. If these gaps are not tackled now and we start working on them, they will become a barrier. They will become a barrier just like childcare is a barrier, for example. So it's very important to understand the status quo. In our projects with the governments, whenever there is digital, we ensure there is gender as well. So that means in the targeting, in the facilitation of services. We look at you mentioned the tech ecosystem. So we look at it from not only that the tech sector is an employer of women, but also it provides access to services to citizens, including women. And we look here at the gender gaps on women's access to these services, including government, education services, financial services. And we need to, from now, continue to look at how to address these gender gaps by making sure that there is internet access, there is device access, there is affordability concerns that are being addressed and tackled, as well as, of course, skills gaps that are being bridged through the various programs. We also look at the tech ecosystem as an enabler for women to work through flexible work arrangements, not only a sector to work in, but also to work through. So flexible work arrangements, remote work, access again to devices, security, cybersecurity concerns, for women working through the cyberspace is something that we also look at. So we look at policies that ensure that women are able to function within this space. We also look at this ecosystem as an enabler for women to find opportunities, right? So you could be looking for a job as a woman through these platforms. You could be looking for new markets to expand your business. So also, how do we facilitate women's entry and confidence to be part of this space? If we don't start now by addressing the gender gaps, these will all become constraints. And in the future, we will find that women are behind, not only because of social norms or, for example, childcare or unreliable and expensive transport, but also because of digital constraints. So this is how we look at it. And again, through our programming with the government, similarly to TechStart, we have the Youth Technology and Jobs, which you can see the booth in the back for, which again supports not only entrepreneurship, but also skills development and access to digital services. We work also on the digital centered government services project, which also looks at service provision by the government to the citizens, including women, in the education as well, and in e-entrepreneurship through the promotion of e-shops and expansion of female presence in the cyberspace. So I hope that helps
absolutely. And you've touched base on the obstacles which are main. That takes me to looking towards the future of digital transformation for gender equity point, which takes me back to Lara and asking what new opportunities do you see for mobile technology to further catalyze women's economic empowerment in the region, and what should be the priority areas to tackle mainly part of it, to tackle the main obstacles that Nour was mentioning as well?
It's really nice to spend time on a panel with people that you agree so well with. And nice to see men in the audience for all of the reasons that we've mentioned. I think there's a couple key priority areas, and Nour just touched on those. Digital skills, so getting women online is absolutely imperative. It's not just imperative for economic well-being, it's imperative so that they don't get left out of a digitized economy. It's also imperative as we look at, again, emerging technologies like AI. Generative AI will have the same biases as our societies and cultures unless women are participating. I firmly believe it's only going to get smarter if women are participating. I think one of the other things that we need to look at has already been mentioned. It's in investing in STEM, and it's investing in school-age children, girls and boys, and changing the conversation and the stereotypes really around the type of people who enter these kinds of careers, and maybe even for some of us in the tech space, expanding our own minds around what's included in that STEM bucket.
Yeah.
And then I think once women are in the workforce, organizations like mine and technology organizations need to do a much better job of managing the talent pool. That 26% that we're stopped at from a leadership perspective, that just has to shift.
Actually, just a thought came in when you were talking that women should be more involved in the feeding of AI so that the output will be more gender-based
More
as well. We don't want the same output from an AI as well.
100%.
Okay. Fareeda, last question for you, and then we move to Motaz and Nour for the last questions. Digital transformation offers vast opportunities for economic inclusion. What strategic approaches do you recommend for fostering digital and economic opportunities for women in tech across the MENA region?
This is a very good question. I think we've discussed several strategies throughout this session and with my esteemed panelists, fellow panelists. But I think we have to have a closer look on the market trends today. Technology has become now in every traditional sector. So market trends including edtech, green tech, agri-tech, fintech, we find technology everywhere. So this is a great opportunity for future growth for companies and for future growth for the labor force to tap into. I think there has to be also focus on the skill acquirement also to be able to conquer these industries. So cybersecurity, AI with all its different applications, which is endless, and blockchain, all of these technologies, I think, and this is my advice, and this is my message that I wanted to say, is keep an eye on those skills, see what's required, and focus on them, especially for women. This is a great opportunity for women. And having met throughout the past 2 days, having met very prominent women in their fields, including yourself, Maha, and with my fellow panelists here, with what Lara has just mentioned, that 45% of the Mobile World Congress were female, and it was required for them to be CEOs. I think the journey, and we can all agree, the journey to success is not filled with roses. It's challenging, but yet women need to take that challenge. They need to invest in their skills, upskilling, and their development and self-improvement, because good results comes with strong will and perseverance. I always say that access to self-improvement and knowledge is on individuals. Access to opportunities and career development lies on companies. So it's a collaborative effort after all, and it's for the good of both.
Thank you, Fareeda. Motaz, AI and ethics are increasingly relevant as tech becomes more integral to our lives. Given your interest in AI ethics, as I heard you talk about it a lot, what ethical considerations should we prioritize when designing programs to attract women into tech fields in the MENA region?
That's an interesting question, actually. When designing, I think, programs using AI for recruitment, for instance, we have to do some considerations that these programs must be inclusive, transparent, and have the fairness to choose the candidates. For instance, once Amazon used a recruitment AI tool, and it was it had some bias into males, and they scrapped this tool and stopped it. And then because of the data learning, it was a little bit biased. So I think bias-free algorithms is something essential for designing any program. And for women, I think as well, data privacy is something crucial as well for their journey in the tech. So for any initiative for designing programs, it has to emphasize on the data privacy as well. And one more thing maybe is, as you just mentioned, is feeding the AI. It has to be as well considered with education ethics. So we make sure that these trained models are not biased, inclusive, and have the fairness to include each and every diverse from different groups.
So do you think Alexa is just a diversion, given the name of Alexa, to think that
Maybe.
it's a female?
Maybe. Maybe it's a good marketing, but I think it's yeah, maybe, but I think we need to test that over and over again. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Nour, last question. Effective policy and programs design can have a lasting impact on gender equity. Could you highlight some of the most impactful outcomes from the World Bank projects in Jordan and its role in fostering gender diversity and inclusion?
There are so many numbers, positive mostly, to talk about, but I would like to highlight that through our work, we witnessed the move or the shift from focusing on gender disaggregated data. This is a term we use a lot in development. So gender disaggregated data used to be the tool to say, you know, we target 50% women, or we target 15% of our graduates get employed, things like that, into meaningful and impactful interventions that really build human capital, make a difference, measure achievements, and also the governments are more willing to report on these topics. They are more willing to communicate on these topics. And have in Jordan, for example, committed for the first operation dedicated to enhancing women's economic opportunities in the MENA region. And this was not going to be possible without really believing in the need of empowerment of women in all across the board, but not only through gender disaggregated data, but through really ensuring that there is coherence, when addressing constraints in transport, in childcare, in the workplace environment, and also in entrepreneurship and financial inclusion. So this is one of the things that I think is a result of continued efforts in this space.
Thank you so much. Actually, talking to every single one alone gives a lot of input, but seeing it all together from different perspectives gives another dimension, and it gives me the feeling that we always have to get it going from all different angles and perspectives, and from private, from initiatives, all together to make it really happen. So these brainstorming sessions should go on. Thank you so much for your time, Lara, Motaz, Nour. And Fareeda, it was so great, and I'm privileged to be on as a moderator for this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.